Howdy, partners. Welcome to Saddle and Sixskin, your home for tales of the Old West, grit, and glory. Are you ready to saddle up for a ride through the rugged landscapes and even more rugged hearts of the American frontier? Before we head out, be sure to give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future stories. They called her a burden, didn't they? A stain on Dry Creek, Wyoming Territory, in the autumn of 1883. You could smell dust and smoke swirling through the town's lone main street, carried on the wind while the church bells rang out, announcing noon. It's always the innocent that suffer. Didn't they ever see the heart that's being slowly chipped away? Folks were gathered like crows by the wooden fence behind the livery stable, whispering and scoffing, those that still had the power to do so. Pointing fingers, feeling superior, forgetting their own sins under the big sky. Some held parasols, hiding their faces, perhaps ashamed. Others clutched their children close, as if the sight before them might somehow contaminate their innocence, those that were still able to clutch. Didn't they see themselves as contaminated with this behavior? Anna Whitlow stood with her wrists bound tight behind her, tied to a split log fence post like some animal up for auction. It's a sorry state when a human being is treated like cattle. Her dress was faded and sun-worn, showing the hardship she'd endured. And on one side of her cheek, there was a smear of dry blood, a reminder of when she'd fallen earlier, trying to escape what she knew was coming for her. How could a town turn on someone so desperate? Now, a woman in a feathered hat muttered, "She's a Whitlow, all right, just like her daddy, drowning in debt and dragging everyone down with her." The judgment ran deep. Another voice, just loud enough for Anna to hear, chimed in, "Should have left town when the bank took her house." It's always easy to judge from a place of comfort. Anna didn't flinch, though. Her green eyes stayed fixed forward, focused on nothing. Trying hard not to blink, because every time she did, the image of her father's face would appear, cold and blue in the coffin they couldn't even afford. 2 months gone, and still, he held her captive, in ways he never meant to. It's a powerful thing, the hold the past can have on us, isn't it? And if you are feeling this story, please give a thumbs up. Mr. Hollis, the banker, leaned against a post nearby, dabbing his sweaty neck with a handkerchief. "This is just business," he told the small, self-righteous crowd. "It's always the same old song, isn't it? Her daddy owed $43 more than the sale brought in. That means she's liable." Some no-account shouted, "She ain't got 43 cents. More laughter followed, sharp and cruel. Anna's lips stayed pressed tight shut. She'd pleaded her case yesterday and the day before. Told them she had no family left, no money, no home. But none of it mattered. The law said a debt unpaid was a debt inherited, and in Dry Creek, laws bent for the powerful and broke the weak. It's a tale as old as time, ain't it? The rich get richer, and the poor, well, they just get poorer. And this is also how our West was won, and we want you along for the ride." "She can work it off," Hollis continued, nodding toward 2 men in leather vests. "Housemaids in Denver. Maybe more, if the buyer wants it." One of the men winked, a gesture that made Anna shut her eyes just once, a single tear escaping and slipping down her cheek. The sky above held no clouds, but the sun felt cruel, bright, and watching. A horse whinnied in the distance. You could feel the desperation, couldn't you? The feeling of being trapped with no way out. Then came the slow, measured sound of hooves against the hard-packed earth, growing louder. Heads turned. Silence rolled through the crowd like a tide. From the north end of the street rode a man dressed in a deep brown duster, his wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his eyes. Behind him followed a buckboard wagon carrying 3 children, 2 boys and a little girl no older than 6, her face half hidden in a bonnet. He dismounted slowly, tying his reins to the hitch without a word. And if you're enjoying Saddle and Sixskin, please subscribe to our channel. The stranger looked at Anna, not the crowd, not the banker, just Anna. She looked up. Something in her chest shifted. His eyes were the color of burnt amber, weathered and kind, but unreadable. "Is this how Dry Creek treats its women now?" the man asked, his voice quiet but firm. "She's not a woman, she's a burden," Hollis replied. "And she owes." The stranger cut him off. "How much?" $43.12. He reached inside his coat, pulled out a leather pouch, and counted each coin, deliberate and silent, like every clink of silver was a sentence in a language only he spoke. He handed the money to Hollis, and I bet Hollis got nervous. "She does not owe you anymore." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Hollis hesitated, then took the pouch and stepped back. The silence turned on its head. The man turned to Anna, pulled a small knife from his belt, and with a swift motion, cut the rope binding her wrists. Her arms fell forward, weak and trembling. She met his gaze, confused, vulnerable, silent. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. She nodded, though her throat burned with unspoken gratitude. He stepped aside. "Come with me. You have a place now." "What an entry, don't you think?" One of the boys in the wagon shouted, "Papa, who is she?" The stranger looked at Anna, then back at his children. "Someone who needed help, that's all." As Anna climbed into the wagon, hands shaking, heart racing, the little girl offered her a piece of apple. "That took courage, didn't it?" Anna took it with a nod, tears welling, but refusing to fall. The wagon pulled away, dust rising behind them. The crowd slowly dispersed, some ashamed, others silent, a few still scowling, probably those that knew the wrong they did. But the air had shifted. Something new had entered Dry Creek. And this story, her story, had just begun. The wagon creaked over a ridge and down into the valley, where the Callahan Ranch stretched like a living painting, golden grass swaying in the wind, pine trees lining the edge of the distant hills, and a wide red barn that glowed in the sinking sun. Anna sat stiffly in the back beside the children. Her wrists were rubbed raw from the ropes, and her mind acted more than her body. The girl who had offered her an apple now leaned against her shoulder without a word, her tiny fingers playing with the hem of Anna's sleeve. The two boys sat across from her, casting glances and whispering. "She doesn't look dangerous," one muttered. "She looks like she cries a lot," said the other. "She's sad," the girl replied, almost like a defense. The wagon came to a stop in front of a modest two-story ranch house. A ranch hand carrying a saddle froze at the sight of Anna. Another woman stepped out from the kitchen door, apron on, wiping her hands. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Is that the girl from town? Thought they were selling her off. Why is Jacob bringing her here?" Anna stayed in the wagon until Jacob returned from tying the horses. He offered her a hand. She hesitated before taking it. His grip was strong but careful, like everything he did was measured. Inside the house, the scent of stew filled the warm air. The hearth crackled. A ticking clock echoed in the stillness. Jacob led her to a chair at the long wooden table. "You can stay here," he said simply. "You'll have food, a place to sleep. I don't expect anything in return." Anna looked down at her hands, her voice barely a whisper, "But I owe you." Jacob shook his head. "No, you do not. Debt's paid." "That was my father's," she said. "Now it feels like I owed twice over." His eyes met hers across the room, calm, unwavering. "What your father left behind isn't your burden to carry anymore." Before she could reply, one of the boys called out from the stairwell, "Papa, is she staying forever?" Jacob turned, his voice flat, but not unkind. "She's staying as long as she wants." That night, Anna was given the guest room, small but clean, with a quilted blanket and a view of the hills. She stood by the window long after the oil lamp was lit, watching the dusk settle over the land. The walls were quiet, peaceful, yet she could feel the weight of her presence in every creak of the floorboards. Outside, ranch hands loaded feet into the barn. One paused, nodding toward the house. "Boss gone soft," he said. "Bringing home strays now. They say she's a debtor's girl," another whispered. "Nothing but trouble." Inside, Anna heard none of it. But she felt every word in her bones, the way people looked, the space she took up. Downstairs, Jacob sat at the table with his children. The girl spoke between bites of bread. She was crying in her sleep. "She's not our mother," one of the boys said defensively. "She's not trying to be," Jacob replied. "Let her rest." He said nothing more, only sipped his coffee and stared into the fire like it held answers he was not ready to speak aloud. Upstairs, Anna lay awake, the warmth of the quilt doing little to settle her thoughts. Her stomach was full, her hands clean, her body safe for now. But her heart, it felt tethered to something she could not name. She did not understand this man, this quiet rancher with storm-colored eyes who stepped into her life like a miracle and asked for nothing in return. That somehow frightened her more than debt ever had. The days began to stretch like canvas under the Wyoming sun, bright, slow, and unfamiliar. Anna woke early each morning to the lowing of cattle and the smell of coffee brewing in the kitchen. At first, she stayed quiet, unsure where to step, what she was allowed to touch. But soon she found herself moving through the house like a shadow that chose to remain. She began to cook breakfast before the children came down, biscuits and eggs, sometimes beans with bacon if the pantry allowed. She swept floors, laundered linens, and stitched torn shirts by firelight. When Jacob went out to the fields, she followed, offering to carry feed or help mend fences. He never asked her to do more than she could, but she always tried anyway. The children tested her. The boys swapped the sugar with salt once and laughed until their ribs ached. The girl hid Anna's boots in the hoft. They whispered behind her back and giggled when she bent to stir the pot. It was not cruelty, it was curiosity wrapped in doubt. But Anna did not scold. She laughed gently, even when it hurt. She told stories while washing their hair. She listened when they fought, knelt when they cried, and stitched buttons on their shirts without being asked. Over time, their pranks faded. The laughter stayed. Jacob said little, but he saw everything. When she tripped, trying to lift a water bucket twice her weight, he took it from her hands without a word and carried it to the trough. When the first frost bit the air and she stood outside tending laundry, he walked past her once and again, and on the third pass, he laid his coat over her shoulders without breaking stride. He never looked back to see her reaction. He did not need to. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Anna's heart was still weary, but it softened like snow thawing beneath the sun. She smiled more, slept deeper. Her hands grew calloused, her cheeks took on color, and her voice, once barely above a whisper, now sang softly as she peeled apples by the window. Then came the night that changed everything. The moon hung thin and high, veiled by clouds. Jacob was out late, checking the southern fence. The children were asleep. Anna sat by the hearth, darning a shirt, when the dogs began to bark. Voices, footsteps, then a gun cock. She moved quickly, quiet as a doe. Through the side window, she saw 3 figures, bandits, rough and dirty, creeping toward the barn. She grabbed Jacob's rifle from the wall, though she had never fired one. She barely made it outside when she saw a movement by the corral. One of the boys, Ben, had slipped out to see what the noise was. A bandit caught sight of him. "Just a no," she cried. Ben froze. The man lunged, reaching for the boy. Anna raised the rifle. Her hand shook violently. She could not aim, so she ran. She threw herself between the outlaw and the boy, screaming as loud as her lungs would allow. The man grabbed her by the arm and shoved her down, but by then, Jacob's horse thundered across the yard. A shot rang out. The bandits scattered like rats under torchlight. One limped, another fired blindly, but Jacob was faster, more precise. He took down 2 before the third vanished into the trees. Anna lay in the dirt, blood on her lip, arm bruised, trembling with fear and adrenaline. Jacob jumped down beside her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "The boy Ben, he's safe." Ben knelt beside them, eyes wide, voice small. "She saved me, Pa." Jacob's gaze flicked between them, then to her. He helped her up slowly. His hands were warm. That night, everything shifted again. The next morning, Ben refused to leave Anna's side. The girl braided a flower into Anna's hair. Even the older boy, Sam, began calling her by name instead of her. And Jacob, he still said little. But when he looked at Anna across the table that morning, something new had settled in his eyes, not charity, not pity, but respect. The days lengthened into spring, and with the soft wind came something harder to name. Anna had grown comfortable in the rhythm of the ranch. She moved with ease through the kitchen, the barn, the orchard. She laughed more often now, open, unguarded, her voice carried through the house when she read stories aloud to the children at night, her words wrapping around the walls like lullabies. One evening, as she read the merry adventures of Robin Hood, the youngest girl lay curled against her, eyes half closed, while the boys listened with sleepy attention. Behind the half-open door, Jacob stood, arms crossed, leaning in the shadows, a faint smile on his face. He never entered, never interrupted, just listened, quiet and still as though afraid to break the spell. They began to speak more, not often, but enough. A comment over coffee, a nod at the sunrise, a shared look when one of the boys said something ridiculous. He showed her how to mend a stirrup, she showed him how to make wild berry preserves. Then came the day Anna fell. The new colt had been restless, she insisted on riding him anyway. Jacob warned her gently. "He ain't ready." She smiled. "Neither am I." She wanted to prove something. She wasn't sure what or to whom. The colt reared on a hill slope and she hit the ground hard, breath knocked from her chest. Before she could even lift her head, Jacob was there. He had ridden like the wind, face-stricken, hands shaking as he dropped beside her. "Anna, I'm all right," she managed, though her ribs throbbed. He ignored her words. Gently, urgently, he lifted her in his arms, cradling her like she might vanish. "You scared the hell out of me," he muttered, his voice low, raw. She saw something in his eyes then, something unspoken, unpolished. And it stayed with her long after the bruises faded, but in Dry Creek, peace never lasted long. Murd got out. Of course it did. And do you? What do you think happens next? Do us a favor and like and subscribe. The banker's wife saw Anna shopping alone and whispered to the dressmaker. The butcher told the blacksmith. Soon, everyone had an opinion. That girl's got her claws in Jacob Callahan. Bet she wants the deed, the land, the name. She's not a maid anymore. She's a snake in soft shoes. It came to a boil one evening in town. Jacob had taken the children for supplies. Anna came along, hesitant, but smiling. They stopped at the saloon's general store window when the trouble began. Two ranchers, half-drunk and loud, stepped outside the saloon. One pointed. "Ain't that the little Derter girl? The one who played damsel and landed herself a fortune." The other snorted. "She's got more nerve than a coyote in a chicken coop walking around like she owns his name." Jacob turned slowly. "Careful, Callahan," one taunted. "You marry that, you'll wake up with nothing but an empty bed and an empty pocket." The street fell quiet. People watched from behind barrels, through shop windows, from porches. Anna froze beside the wagon, every muscle pulled tight. Jacob walked forward. "I do not take kindly to men speaking filth in front of my children," he said calmly. The first man laughed. "You think this town don't see what's going on?" Jacob stepped closer. "You don't speak her name again. Not unless you're prepared to answer for it." The second man opened his mouth to retort, but Jacob's fist moved faster. One punch. The man hit the ground hard, groaning. Jacob stood tall, shoulders squared, breathing steady. "She's under my roof," he said loud enough for all to hear. "She works harder than half the men in this town and has more honor than either of you will ever know. You say another word, and it'll be the last one you spit." The silence that followed was thunderous. Anna stood stunned, not at the defense, but the fire in it. Not just protection, not just duty, something deeper. Later, on the wagon ride home, the children chattered nervously, still riding the thrill of the moment. Anna sat quiet beside Jacob, heart pounding. "You did not have to," she began. "I did," he said. "And I would again." Their eyes met, and though nothing else was said, something bloomed in the space between them, not quite spoken, not quite hidden, but unmistakably real. Spring gave way to the heat of early summer. The hills dried, the winds turned harsher, but within the walls of the Callahan Ranch, things had settled into a fragile kind of peace, until a stranger rode into town. He arrived with a crooked grin and a limp in his left leg. Wore a black hat and smelled of old whiskey and sour dust. Folks said his name was Clay Mercer. Said he used to ride with gamblers down in Colorado. Said he once put a bullet in a man over a horse he never paid for. But what Anna knew, what she remembered, was the sound of his voice. He had visited her father many times when she was a child, always at night, always leaving angry. And now he was back. She first saw him in town, leaning against the fence outside the general store, hat tipped low. He tipped it higher when she passed, revealing a grin that made her stomach turn. "Well, now," he drawled. "Ain't you a little flower bloomed in fine soil?" Anna's steps slowed, her chest tightening. "You look just like your daddy, girl, especially when he lied through his teeth." She said nothing, just walked on faster, the weight of old fear pressing down. Back at the ranch, she said little, but her silence was loud. Jacob noticed. He always did. That night, she sat outside watching the stars. "He's back," she said when Jacob came to stand beside her. "Clay Mercer, he used to deal with my father. Claimed PO'd him. Claimed we stole from him." Jacob's jaw tensed. "You think he's here for you?" Anna nodded. "I feel like I brought a ghost to your door." He looked at her, voice low. "You didn't bring this." He followed. Days passed and tension clung like dust. Then came the letter, anonymous, but written in rough scrawl. "He ain't clean. Her daddy stole from me and now I'll take what I'm owed." Jacob read it, then went quiet for a long time. The next morning, he rode into town, spoke to the banker, dug into old records. When he came back, he tossed a stack of documents on the kitchen table. "That debt," he said, "the one that got you tied to a fence, it was never real. Hollis faked part of it. Mercer fed it to him." And a scared breath caught. "So you were never the burden," Jacob said. "They made you one." That night the fire came. It started in the grain barn. Flames licked the sky like angry tongues. The smell of smoke pulled Anna from sleep. She ran outside barefoot, heart pounding. "The livestock," she shouted, realizing the animals in the adjacent pen were panicked, trapped. The blaze crept closer. Jacob wasn't back yet. She grabbed a bucket, threw water at the hinges, then climbed the fence, and slipped inside the enclosure. The fire roared behind her, close enough to feel the heat against her back. She slapped the sides of the stairs, unlatched gates, shouted until her voice cracked. The animals surged out one after another, but the smoke thickened. Her legs weakened, her vision swam. Then arms, strong, familiar, swept her up from the dirt. Jacob, he carried her out, shielded her body as another support beam collapsed behind them. They fell to the ground in the open field, coughing, gasping. Safe. He cradled her again like he had that day by the corral. "You could have died," he whispered. "I thought they would," she said, voice. "I could not let them burn." The fire behind them raged, devouring the barn, but the cattle were safe. The family was safe. Later, as the embers cooled and the ranch hands assessed the damage, Jacob stood in the yard, eyes fixed on the ruin. Anna came to stand beside him. Her face was streaked with soot, her hands blistered. He didn't speak. He just reached for her hand, and this time she did not pull away. The fire was out, but its scent lingered in the soil, in the fibers of every quilt and shirt that had hung too close to the barn. And if you enjoyed this story, tell everyone to go and like and subscribe to our channel. For days the ranch pulsed with repair, wood hammered, cattle counted, ash swept away. But that night, with the sky clear again, and the air cool enough to carry breath, the world slowed. Jacob found her sitting on the old bench near the fence line where the fire hadn't touched. The lantern beside her glowed faintly. She wore a simple dress, her hair loose, curling at the ends from heat and sweat. Her hands were wrapped in cloth. He sat beside her, close enough to feel the quiet between them. They did not speak at first. She broke the silence. "You could have died coming for me. You could have died going in for them," he replied. She looked at him. "I could not let them burn. They are part of this place." "So are you," he said. Her breath hitched. "I am still not sure what I am here," she whispered. "Not exactly a guest. Not quite family. People still look at me like I do not belong." He turned to face her fully now. "I do not care how they look at you. This house was silent for years. Since Sarah died, it was just duty and dust. You brought color back, laughter, life." He tried to speak, but he held her gaze. "You are not a burden, Anna," he said, voice rough around the edges. "You are the reason this home remembers what joy feels like." Tears welled in her eyes, sudden and full. She shook her head slightly, as if trying to refuse the kindness. "I am afraid," she confessed. "Afraid that I will bring more trouble, that I will ruin something steady, something good." Jacob reached for her hand, bandaged, bruised, trembling. "You are not ruin, you are redemption." Her lips parted, breath shaky. Their faces were inches apart now, the night pressing in around them like a secret. "I do not know how to do this," she said. "Neither do I," he murmured. He leaned in, slow, deliberate, giving her time to pull away, but she did not. Their lips met with a tenderness that came from every moment they had held back. Every glance, every silence, every storm weathered together. It was a kiss not of possession but of permission or healing. Of hunger laced with restraint. When they finally parted, her forehead rested against his, breath mingling in the cool night. "I do not want to be afraid anymore," she whispered. "Then do not be," he replied. "You are home now." It began with smoke on the horizon. A thin, crooked line rising from the northern ridge, the side Jacob always called the blind spot, the side with no fence, no patrol. Jacob stood on the porch, rifle in hand, eyes narrowed. Anna came up behind him. "Is it fire again?" "No," he said. "It is men." Clay Mercer had returned, but not alone. This time he brought 5 others, rough-faced, leather-clad, with rifles slung over their backs and revenge burning in their eyes. They rode toward the ranch with dust in their wake and hunger in their hearts. Not just for coin, but for land, pride, and power. "They think we're too few to fight back," Jacob said, loading his rifle. "We're not," Anna asked, voice steady, despite the fear creeping up her spine. He looked at her. Really, looked. "We are enough." Within the hour, those loyal to Jacob had gathered. Tom Raleigh, the old ranch hand who had taught Jacob to ride. Cassie Bell, sharpshooting widow from the next valley. Even young Ben, fists clenched and eyes wide with defiance. Anna stood among them, a revolver holstered at her hip and fire in her chest. She had chosen this life, this land, these people, and she would not let them burn again. They took cover near the barn and bunkhouse, spreading across the property like nerves before a strike. Jacob crouched near the porch post, whispering to Anna. "They will not take what is ours." Gunshots rang out. The battle began. Mercer's gang fanned out quickly, using the tall grass and old barrels as cover. Bullets cracked through wood. Glass shattered. Horses screamed. Cassie dropped the first man, one shot clean through the shoulder. Tom took another down with a rock to the skull, then wrestled his rifle away. Anna stayed near the children, keeping them low in the root cellar entrance. But when one of Mercer's men circled toward the side yard, toward little Sarah, who had slipped out screaming, Anna ran, Sarah, down. The man raised his rifle, and Anna threw herself forward, arms wide. A deafening crack, pain seared through her side. She hit the ground. Sarah screamed, crawling to her. Jacob saw the flash of the shot, saw her fall. Something primal tore through him. He stood fully exposed, firing again and again. One bullet hit the man's chest. Another struck the final outlaw in the leg as he tried to run. Mercer himself limped behind the last shed, wounded and breathing heavy. Jacob tackled him with the weight of fury and fear. Fists flew. Mercer struck hard, but Jacob struck harder. "You do not get to threaten my home," Jacob roared. He hit him once more, and Mercer went limp. The ranch fell still. Smoke rose from the side barn. The chicken coop was splintered. Several windows shattered. The fence half collapsed. But it was over. They had won. Jacob ran to where Anna lay, blood on her dress, arms curled around the little girl. "Anna, Anna, look at me." Her eyes fluttered. "She's okay. I made sure." He pressed his hands against the wound, desperate. "You should not have." "Yes, I should," she whispered, fingers brushing his. "She's ours." Jacob's breath caught. "Hers," he repeated, voice breaking. The others gathered slowly. Cassie knelt beside them, tore cloth from her sleeve. "Shall make it," she said. "It's not too deep." But Jacob's hands did not leave her. He held her as the sun began to rise, bathing the battered ranch in gold. The land was scarred. The barn was blackened. The air still smelled of gunpowder. But they were alive. And Anna. Anna had become more than just a woman he had saved. She was the one who had saved them all. The days after the fight moved slow and tender. Ranch hands repaired fences. Smoke was cleared. New planks rose where the barn once burned. Wounds were stitched, and some scars stayed quiet, sacred reminders of what was nearly lost. Anna healed, wrapped in a warmth she had never known before. Jacob refused to leave her side for the first week, sleeping in the chair by her bed, hat in his hands, eyes never straying far. The children tiptoed into the room with flowers and whispered stories, each one trying to make her smile. She did. One morning, Jacob knocked gently on the door. Something folded in his hand. She sat up slowly, the blanket still tucked around her. He stepped inside. Quiet. "I want to give you something," he said. She tilted her head, brow furrowed. "This is not about debt," he added. "Or rescue or owing." He held out the folded parchment. Anan took it slowly. She opened it, her breath caught. It was the land deed to the Callahan Ranch. Her name had been added right below his. She looked up, stunned. I do not understand." Jacob knelt before her, eyes level with hers. "I never meant to change your life, but you changed mine. You made this place a home again. You saved my child. You stood in fire for us. He placed his hand gently over hers. This land, it is more than dirt and fences. It is our story now. Yours and mine, if you want it. Her lips trembled. Are you sure? I have never been more sure of something ever. He stood, but before he could say more, the door burst open. 3 pairs of small feet ran in, arms flying around Anna. Mama! Sarah cried first, hugging her waistbin, and Sam followed, half shy, half proud. Mama, can we help with the new barn? Anna blinked. Once, twice, tears came, soft and whole. She wrapped her arms around them all, pulling them in, pressing her cheek to their hair. And be sure to like and subscribe before the end. Yes, she whispered. Yes, you can. Outside, the town buzzed with quiet talk. At the general store, the butcher muttered, Jacob gave her the land. The banker's wife frowned. She'll ruin it. But the school teacher, standing nearby, smiled. I saw her pull a child from fire, she said. If that's ruin, then maybe we need more of it. Bit by bit, the wind shifted. Popal looked longer, thought harder, and some nodded when she passed by with a basket of eggs or a child's hand in hers. The woman tied to a fence was now the woman who'd held a family together through smoke and storm. One dawn, Anna stepped out onto the porch, cradling a coffee mug in her hands. Jacob joined her, arms folded across his chest. The horizon blushed with early light, casting gold over the fields. The children raced through the grass, chasing shadows and dreams. She leaned into his shoulder. He kissed the top of her head. They said nothing. They did not need to. From the ashes of debt, fire, and judgment, something had risen. Not just survival, but something better. A home, a name, a love that no longer asked for permission to be real. And as the sun crowned the hills, Anna Whitlow, no longer a burden, stood beside the man who had once saved her and now belonged to her heart and soul. From a girl tied to a fence in shame to a woman standing tall in love and honor, Anna's journey reminds us that sometimes it takes the fire to forge a home, and sometimes the ones we least expect to be saved are the ones who save us. If this story stirred your heart, made you hold your breath, or brought a tear to your eye, tap that like button and let us know you were riding with us until the very end. And for more unforgettable tales of love, loss, and redemption on the American frontier, subscribe to Saddle and Sixskin, where Wild West never misses, but hearts did. Listen through one ear and tremble through the other. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, ride true and love brave.